is May 7th, back in the man cave for another edition of Virtual Math. Thank you guys for watching. Day 3 of Fantastic Five is in the books. You're about to knock out day 4. And man, there's a couple questions on here today from yesterday that were really tough questions, specifically number 5. If you got number 5 right yesterday, it was really impressive, but I'm here to go over all these questions for you today. I am rocking, I think this might be the first jersey I ever bought with my own money. It's a throwback Ron Artest jersey, and I'm willing to bet you have no idea who that is, and that's fine, but I used to love that dude. All right, so we're going to get right into it here. Get our questions pulled up. Get the close-up, the quarantine close-up, and kick that one out. Adios, my friend. And now you got just me. All right, let's get to our questions. Numero uno. It says JC ran 3/100ths of a mile and Brian ran 4/10ths of a mile. It wants to know the total distance traveled between them, total being your keyword there. So we're going to do some addition with these fractions. JC with 3/100ths, Brian with 4/10ths. Hopefully after seeing this one a couple times, you realize pretty quickly we're not going to be able to add those because of the different denominators. So hopefully you're not choosing the answers that had 7 as a numerator. But now you just had to know which fraction you're able to deal with here. Because if you look at 3/100ths, you can't show that as tenths. Remember, whatever you do to the bottom, you got to do to the top. And I can take a 0 from the denominator, but I can't do it with the numerator. So in this case, I'd really only be changing 4/10ths, and I would just change that to hundredths by adding those zeros on there. So boom, boom. And then the addition part's the easy part because most of these numbers you guys have been dealing with for years, especially when you know the denominator's not going to change. That's going to stay in hundredths. And when you add 40 plus 3, you would get 43/100ths, and that would give you the answer choice of C. So A and B would be answers that if I saw you choose those, I would assume you were somebody who's not even watching this right now. I think if you watch the videos just once or twice, those could be answers that you could eliminate pretty quickly. And if you have been watching the videos, those are answer choices that I want to trick people into picking, but you know not to. So that's definitely a question where I can kind of look at your numbers and I can kind of say, well, if they're missing that one, they're probably not hearing me say this right now. But if you are hearing this, that's to your benefit, and that's probably going to help you in the long run. So moving on to, that was C. Moving on to number 2. These numbers getting a little bit bigger, but the process is still the same. It says Greg has 32 hairs on his head. If each hair is 2/3 of an inch, what is the total length of all of his hairs combined? 32 hairs is not a lot, Greg, but that's all right. And each of them are 2/3 of an inch long, so we can do that multiplication again. Knowing the denominator is going to stay the same, and also knowing that you're always going whole number times your numerator. If you don't know 32 times 2 off the top of your head, which I'd say most of you probably don't, you could probably mentally do 32 plus 32 in your head, or if you needed to stack them, it takes you no time at all if you know your facts. 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 3 is 6. That gives me my numerator. Sometimes you'll get lucky. 64/3 might be an answer choice. In this case, it is not. So I did this one specifically for a reason. Well, let me just make sure I didn't make that an answer choice. No, I did not. Hopefully nobody chose A just because it looks close. So I did this one for a reason. We've been using numbers where you can pretty much just multiply your denominator to get close to 64. You might not know 3 times something to get you that close, so you may actually have to do the long division here, which doesn't hurt to review. So when we're doing 64 divided by 3, 3 goes into 6 twice. 3 times 2 gives me 6, and 6 minus 6 is 0. Once I've subtracted, I'll bring down my 4, and I'll just start all over. And remember, we've always had the dangerous monkey swipe bananas on there, but I think you guys have got this down. 3 can go into 4 one time. 3 times that 1 gives me 3. And 4 minus 3 gives me 1. So when I'm looking at 64 thirds, and I'm trying to figure out how many whole times can 3 go into 64, it went in 21 whole times. And remember that remainder always becomes your numerator. And the denominator doesn't change. So when it's asking for the total length of Greg's hair, if I combined all of those hairs together, I got 21 1/3 inches, which would have given you C. So we've had to do a little bit of extra work all week on that question. The process hadn't changed. Today you just might have had to toss some long division in there. But as much as we've been doing it in class and even in Fan 5, it shouldn't add too much extra time to your problem solving. Number 3, man. Number 3. I told you. In these videos, I'm not worried about the math. The math's going to be good. If you didn't read this question, you missed it. Sturgill, Chris, and Whitney are each reading the same book. Sturgill has read 4/8 of it, Chris has read 3/5 of it, and Whitney has read 5/6 of it. Who has read the most? Not who has the most left to read, who read the most. So if you just straight up came to this question, took those fractions, figure out what was left, and cross-multiplied and didn't read, you missed it. You can't just solve it the same way you've been solving it the past couple of days. You had to read this one. I've actually been given the fractions that it wants me to compare. Sturgill read 4/8. Chris read 3/5. Whitney read 5/6. And then all I got to do is cross multiply. They gave me what I needed. So we'll start with Sturgill and Chris. 8 times 3 is 24. 5 times 4 is 20. Looking at those two gentlemen, Sturgill would be eliminated because Chris read more than him. Now I would cross multiply Chris and Whitney. 5 times 5 is 25. 6 times 3 is 18. Comparing those two fractions, Whitney read the most, so Chris would be eliminated, which would give me the answer of B. I also listed the names in a different order than they were giving you in the problem. So make sure you're looking at the answer choices and you're matching what you actually did. Some people might do really good math and miss the question because they're not putting labels over their fractions. So make sure you're putting the names with the fractions. That way, when you do the work, you actually know what your answer is supposed to be. All right, moving on to number 4. It says, oh, I went off my thing here. Number 4 says, which choice is not equivalent to 9/10? So I'll kind of do this one really the same way I've been doing it. I'm going to ignore the answer choices to start. I'm just going to use the decimal, write it some different ways that I know I can see it, and I think by doing that, it's going to help me eliminate some answer choices. So I know 9/10 can be written as another decimal, 90/100 just by adding a 0 on there, but then I can show both of those decimals as fractions as well. 9/10 and 90/100 sound the exact same, look a little bit different, but by doing that, I just eliminated C and D. Those are equivalent, all right? So going back to what it actually asks, which is not equivalent to 9/10, I've never compared decimals with fractions. I don't know how to compare that decimal with those two answer choices, but I just showed it right here as another way to write it, as another way to represent it. So I'm going to use that fraction to cross multiply because they're the same amount. So I've got 9/10, and I think A was 16/20. Now, these are bigger numbers, but it's easy to multiply with these numbers that end in 0 because you're really just worried about the first digit, the basic fact. Like if I'm looking at 16 times 10, really all I care about is 16 times 1, which gives me 16, as long as you don't forget to pop that 0 back on at the end. Same thing for 9 times 20. Basic fact is 9 times 2, which is 18. Pop that 0 on it, it gets you 180. Now, doing that cross multiplication, those clearly are not equivalent, which gave me my answer. But I'm still going to check B just in case I potentially made a mistake. 27/30 is 9/10. And again, 10 times 27, basic fact. 27 times 1 is 27, plus that 0 is 270. And then 30 times 9, 9 times 3 gives me 27. put the 0 on there, you can see that those two choices are equivalent. So my answer there would have been A. So a little bit of a different look the past couple of days. But again, if you're watching these videos, they can help you kind of get on the right path. All right, dude, number 5, man. I put information with other information. I didn't give it to you in the order that you needed it. That's why reading a little and doing a little and labeling your stuff is really going to help you. So the zoo is having 25 boxes of bananas delivered to the 15 monkeys who live there. Each box has 20 bananas inside. If each monkey wants to eat 12 bananas, how many bananas will be left over? So what I mean by saying I gave you a bunch of stuff out of order, that very first sentence told me that I'm ordering 25 boxes of bananas for 15 monkeys. But those two numbers don't necessarily go together, because if you keep reading, it says each box has 20 bananas inside. So if I'm reading a little and I'm doing a little, I can then decide, okay, is that 20 going to go with my 25 or my 15? And if I've got it labeled, it's easy to tell. 25 boxes, 20 inside each box. So I know these two go together. And then it tells me that each monkey's going to have 12 bananas. And I know those two numbers go together. So even though they gave it to me in different spots, I can still piece it together. It's like a puzzle. So let me start with the first two, for the first line. I'm ordering 25 boxes of bananas with 20 in each. Boom, I'm going to multiply. All right, so starting in the ones place, 0 times 5 is 0, 0 times 2 is 0. Nothing too serious there, but I do need to come down and add a placeholder so I can start in my tens place. 2 times 5 gives me 10, 0 stays, 1 goes. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 gives me 5. That 500 right there represents how many bananas they ordered, because they ordered 25 boxes, 20 in each. They gave me 500 bananas. Now I know that I've got 15 monkeys who each want to eat 12 bananas. Okay, we'll multiply. 2 times 5 is 10, 0 stays, 1 goes. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. Come down, add my placeholder. Now I can work in the tens place. 1 times 5 is 5, 1 times 1 is 1, and all I got to do with those two numbers is add. And that 180 bananas represents how many bananas those monkeys are going to eat. So if I ordered 500, they ate 180. To figure out what's left over, I would have to subtract. Now, hopefully you didn't get to this point and miss it because of the zeros, because I want to say we maybe even had one of these in Fan 5 already. 0 minus 0, you can do it. 0 minus 8, you can't do it. More on the floor, go next door, get 10 more. This 5 becomes a 4, and this 0 becomes a 10. Guys, you can do 10 minus 8 and get 2, 4 minus 1 and get 3, and you got your answer right there. If it wanted to know how many would have been left over, it would have been 320, which would have been C. So you got stuff worded differently. You got stuff that's in kind of a funky order. It requires you to take your time and give your absolute best. That's how Fan 5 should be. And really, it should get harder as the week goes on, even though it's the same types of questions. So just make sure you're watching the videos, taking your time. Look, it wouldn't kill you to do it twice. You know, I think I give my kids, it's been so long, we set like a 15-minute timer. You know, I'll have kids that'll finish in 8 minutes and then go back and do it again, or as much as they can in 8 minutes. So there's a whole lot of different strategies you can use to try to do your best. So look, 3 days down. It is your Thursday Fan 5 today. You got one more shot to practice before the quiz tomorrow, which is really the day that counts. So pop back in here and watch these videos and set yourself up to get the best possible score that you can. Thank you guys for watching. Good luck.